So it's always wonderful to speak to my fellow California girl, Belinda.
Right.
I've
Hi,
got my Los
Lindsay.
Angeles and California necklaces on for you. Uh,
Oh, sweet.
because we're here
Great.
to talk about Once Upon a Time in California. And
Right.
I know like me, you grew up a lot in the Valley and you grew up with like the AM radio or maybe it was FM, but like the golden era of Los Angeles and California radio. So I mean, I guess the obvious first question is not all the artists are from California, but it's kind of a California themed covers record, obviously.
Right.
So
Right.
what was the inspiration for all this?
Well, I always wanted to do a cover album, and I started thinking about it in 2017. And we had the guy at the record company we had a big list of like 100 songs, a lot of songs that were his choices that didn't really fit with what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really quite sure what that was going to be. And then I thought, well, why not do an album of songs that I loved listening to that inspired me to want to be a singer. Uh, and California radio at that time it's part of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing. So that was like, great, we have a concept. So, yeah, that was it. It's just basically songs that I loved.
So yeah, and also growing up in California, I don't know if you feel this way now, but besides all the soft rock or rock AM, radio, like obviously K Rock, which was probably the first
Oh,
station to ever play the Go-Go's. We were spoiled. We did not know that not every, at least I didn't know that every city in America did not have this abundance of riches on the dial that we grew up with.
exactly, exactly. And it was like, 93 KHJ, like, the real Don Steele and all those amazing Wolfman Jack, all
Mm.
those amazing DJs. But yeah, I mean, that like from even like 1966 to like high school when radio changed and became more sort of mellow, laid back, Doobie Brothers, Eagles, all that kind of thing, which I appreciate now. But back then it was like, well, I didn't really, resonate with it. But like the early like KHJ and Teenage Fair, my babysitter took us to the Teenage Fair, and all these like surf bands, and of course the Beach Boys. That was my first albums, and that definitely informed my taste. And then also listening to these great pop songs on the radio.
Since you mentioned the Beach Boys, you did a song years ago called California with Brian Wilson. And since
Right.
he recently, I don't know if that planted the seeds for this project anyway, but since he obviously recently passed, I would love to get your memories of what it was like to work with him.
Right. Well, he used to come to go-go shows and to my solo shows with Dr. Landy. And he I sang background vocals on a couple of his solo albums.
Oh,
And so I knew him from just him coming to the shows. And I remember when I would sing backgrounds on his album, he would stand in front of me and he would conduct me,
oh.
and it was amazing. And he was such a character. And then I from my album A Woman and a Man, we had this song California, and it was like he'd be perfect on it. So we asked and he said yes. So he came to the studio and he sang over this little cassette player because I guess he had deafness.
Mhm.
So he would do everything. He was singing over the track, I didn't quite understand where he was going with it. But I was like, oh my God, we're going to have to tell Brian Wilson that we can't use his part. So I was kind of freaking out inside. The producer said, let's just, let's let him go into the vocal booth. So all of a sudden it was like a symphony. It was, it was so emotional. And so, I mean, I get really emotional thinking about it because
Wow.
it was like he was like layering these parts that it was a symphony. And watching him work and doing that, it was, I mean, for me, that little girl that like worshipped him and the Beach Boys. I mean, and he was like he's like Mozart. He'll be considered that, I'm sure, in time, and if not already. So he sang for a couple hours on the song, and then when he left, we just like sat there like mute. Nobody could say anything because it was so emotional, and we called it a day. And but yeah, I mean, he was an amazing, amazing human being, amazing artist, of course. And then I saw him a few years ago at the park and talked to him. And it was a big loss for me, for sure. It was like, it felt
Yeah.
like part of my childhood and had gone with him, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of people felt that way, including
Yeah.
myself. That's crazy that you say he used to go to your shows with Dr. Landy, because I don't I maybe wrongly was under the impression that that was a period of time where he was under that guy's like thumb and he didn't even leave the house. Like it's crazy he was going to your shows.
No, he came. I did a festival, in fact, in Ibiza, and he came with Dr. Landy to that. And he was, so he was out
Wow.
and about. And then
Okay.
when he's sang on my album, he was with somebody else named, I think his name is David Leaf,
Okay.
and he was sort of his caretaker and taking care of him. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. What a cross section of California lore that is, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
You mentioned something about going to the teenage fair. Is that like the teenage fair that was in the movie Licorice Pizza?
You know something I should say. I'm ashamed to say I've never seen Licorice Pizza,
It's
and
like
I should say it because I used to hang out in the parking lot behind Licorice Pizza across when it was across the street from the whiskey. I don't know if it's the same Licorice Pizza,
there's
but
only
do you
one
remember that?
licorice pizza. There's only one licorice pizza now, and I work at it, by the way. So it's really funny that there's one in Studio City. I was there today, so they
Well,
revived it.
the one that was on the corner across the street, was that Licorice Pizza? I'm pretty sure it was.
Across the
Uh,
street from the whiskey, probably, yeah, because Tower
yeah,
was on the same side. So wow.
exactly,
I,
exactly. So yeah, I used to, do get up to drink beer and get up to no good behind Licorice Pizza
mm,
Sunset. Yeah,
that is amazing. I used to go the one in the Valley at the Sherman Oaks Galleria.
right.
Because as I mentioned, I grew up in the Valley, and you were talking about high school and maybe how radio was changing. What high school did you go to?
I went to Newbury Park High School
Okay.
and Thousand Oaks. I lived in Thousand Oaks, but I was in the zone that went to Newbury Park with
For some
Heather Locklear. There was a few other people that were there at the same time.
For some reason, I thought you might have gone to Taft, which is where I went. So I
I
thought
think
perhaps,
Jane went to
yeah,
Taft.
okay, there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it's funny how so many things go back to the Valley. When I was growing up, I actually thought the Valley wasn't cool. Like I didn't realize there were all these like cool rock people and celebrities that were living there or being raised at the Runaways were from there and all this
Right.
stuff. So, but you were all over the, you were, I believe, not raised, maybe born in Hollywood. I'm just wondering what these songs all kind of meant to you. Because I know like your childhood was maybe a bit chaotic or turbulent at times,
Right.
but like your press release says that these songs were kind of like your anchor or your escape.
Totally. Totally. It was music for me back then was an escape to, you know, from my dysfunction, typically of a dysfunctional family, because there's a lot of us come from dysfunctional families. But I'm the oldest of seven kids. So I wasn't
How
able
many? How many?
seven. Oh, the oldest is seven. So it was very chaotic. And in fact, I mean, my escape was going to my best friend's house, Christina. Her mom worked. She was a latchkey kid. And we would just lay, every day in summer from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., lay in front of the big speakers and like blast them and just, all the radio stations. And for me, and then, after school, of course, for a couple of hours every day. But for me, it was a total escape. I was really good at creating fantasy for myself because of my upbringing and wanting to like just leave the family behind. So I was really good at fantasy. So I was going to be a big famous singer one day, and these are the songs that inspired me to want to be that famous singer one day.
What was it about wanting to be a famous? I know you grew up, although some people, there's a stereotype that the Valley is all wealthy people. It's totally not true.
No, no,
It
it's
runs the
not.
gamut from super wealthy to super poor. And I know you didn't come from wealth and
No.
was that escape, that idea of being a rock star, like part of you wanting to like get out of your situation?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we had no money. I wouldn't even say we were lower middle class. I would say that we were poor.
Mm.
So, for me, it was, I mean, I was always wearing hand-me-downs and I mean, I had this amazing wardrobe from my aunt who went to square dance. So I had all these square dance dresses that I would wear to school that were actually very cool now when I look back on it, with patent leather shoes. But it meant like being able to have nice clothes, being able to see the world, which is another thing that I fantasize about. I just really, I mean, really wanted to see everything on the planet. Our neighbors had National Geographic, so that was a big fantasy. As being a singer, and I thought, well, be it, you know, a singer that travels the world. I could tick both things, tick off both things. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just total fantasy for me.
Well, I mean, you are travels with Mrs. Mason now, so I guess
Right.
you got your wish, but it's kind of ironic that you wanted to kind of get out of, a poor situation or whatever, and then, your start was in punk, which is all, was all people wearing thrift store hand-me-down clothes and trash bags, and
Right.
it wasn't certainly about ostentatious shows of, wealth and glamour at that time.
No, no, it wasn't. But I still had my little Dior bag that I ate oatmeal for like a month, and able to buy it, and like my Mod for Zone shoes that I loved, those very 80s, and then the Meekly glasses. So I mean, I did have a little bit of a fashion thing going on with even the in the punk days. Um, but yeah, I mean that if it wasn't for that scene, I mean, I that really I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you because it was DIY. You learned as you went along. So yeah, and even then, I mean, I remember Jane and I living at the Canterbury apartments, which is like a punk rock commune almost, and running down the back stairs of the building. We're going to be rich and famous one day. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, that
Even though you
makes
weren't supposed to say that.
Well, I think you and I've talked before about how maybe when bands like, I mean, I think it's actually safe to say from that scene, the Go-Go's were the most successful band to come out of the scene. X were successful too, but not at the chart sales level
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
Go-Go's were. That, yeah, you weren't, that maybe people thought you sold out or whatever, but there was always sort of like this aspirational thing because you guys had the fashion and like just the back cover of Beauty and the Beat was like
The,
you living in luxury.
a bubble bath. Yeah. I think, yeah, I mean, like Gina says in the documentary, which I thought so too. I mean, what are you doing this for? You want to stay in clubs forever and
Mm.
like be struggling forever? I mean, I think that I would think that most of the punks had that sort of, wish in the back of their mind. Maybe not. Maybe I'm totally wrong. They want to stay struggling forever, but I don't really understand that because I think we always want to, and we always. I mean, in the early Go-Go's too. I mean, we couldn't play our instruments, so you couldn't really hear what was going on stage. But they actually were songs with melodies,
Oh,
so there
yeah,
were some
absolutely.
pop aspirations there too.
Absolutely, because maybe some people, knowing how the Go-Go started or what the scene they started in, would be surprised that you've been raised on all this like AM gold. But that tunefulness and those harmonies for sure, that was always there.
Always there. That I think for Charlotte, who was born and raised in California, Jane grew up when she, most of her life in Southern California. That growing up there really, really influenced our tastes, and I think you can hear
Mm.
that, and even the early Go-Go's for that the stuff that he didn't even make the first album.
Like what sort of things would you say?
We had songs like a song called Vicious Circle that was very it was blades, oh here I go playing with blades, about suicide, but
Oh man,
they're very very melodic, very sort of uplifting, but we have these dark lyrics, so
that's one of my favorite combos. So
yeah.
you've said that this Once Upon a Time in California album is sort of an ode to a California that doesn't exist anymore. And, we're talking, I mean, we're talking about places like Licorice Pizza and, Tower Records and the
God, so
Galleria,
much,
whatever. I mean, what
so
are the
much.
things about the LA that you grew up in or that you came of age in, that the Go-Go's came up in that you miss the most?
I think that even in the punk days and living off of Hollywood Boulevard, um, there was, even though it was sort of it was dangerous, there was still an innocence that, of, I think it's the whole world, it's not just California, but I think in LA, I think when it really started changing, like I think if I was going to put a year on it, like an 87, I would say that that's when it was always about entertainment and movies and music, but that's when it really started changing. And I'm not so, it's different. It's not worse because there's still a lot of great places in California and LA, and there's places that still have that magic. But I miss like some of the old architecture, which is disappearing every day, that really made LA LA. But there was, when I think about like a California that doesn't exist, so I was talking to somebody and they said, well, did it ever really? I mean, it was always kind of chaotic with the Manson murders and then the Watts riots and then the Vietnam War. So I think I was, my parents sheltered me from a lot of that stuff, even though I was obsessed with the Manson murders, I have to say,
Oh, were
you know,
you?
oh, totally, and I used to sneak the Herald Examiner, and like read it before, when my mom would go out of the room, I'd read like the testimony from Susan Atkins or Squeaky Fromm. But yeah, so I'm not sure whether it really existed, whether it's just an idea, whether it's a fantasy, whether it's a dream.
Did you ever used to eat at El Coyote and like ask for the Sharon
Yes.
Tate booth? I mean, I know it sounds morbid, but I admit
Yeah.
I've done that.
Well, we used to go up to through Benedict Canyon up to El Cielo Drive when the house was still there, but they changed the street name, and then, I mean, and we were like, who would live in that? Who would live on the grounds of that property? Even though they tore the house down and built this McMansion on the property with this beautiful view. I mean, I still would not want to live there. But yeah, El Coyote. We used to eat there. We used to make jokes about the canned peas on the tostadas.
Yeah, I think they still have them. But hey, the restaurant's still around, unlike a
I
lot of the
love
other
that.
places.
I
Places
know.
like Ben Frank's isn't around anymore,
Oh my
so
God. I know. And Dolores's and there's so many, can't even count them anymore.
it's weird that you mentioned the Manson thing because there's a Beach Boys connection to that too.
Right,
So it's
right.
kind of that sun, dark and light thing is kind of like a California thing.
Well, I think really, I mean, like I read a lot of Joan Didion books, or read a lot of Joan Didion books, and she talked about that's really the pivotal moment of when that California that we all think of it sort of changed, the innocence, changed with that. But yeah, Terry Melcher, who was producing the demos for the Beach Boys, and they thought that Terry Melcher was in the house, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, and I actually met Terry Melcher, and yeah, that was when, yeah, that was when things changed, and I have to agree with her on that.
Did you ever discuss that with Terry Melcher? I'm sure, I guess it would probably be weird to bring it up.
No, no.
I don't
Hey,
suppose
by the
you,
way,
yeah,
were you
I know.
supposed to be there that night? Yeah, no,
I
I
mean,
never
yeah,
brought it up.
probably for the best, probably for the best. But
Yeah.
do you, I mean, you were talking about that, what was it called? The Razor Blade song?
Blades. Yeah,
Blades.
yeah.
Was that like just something in your own? I mean, I guess actually bring it back to this album when you were choosing the songs, were you trying to choose songs that like had that kind of dark and light in them? Because like a song like Superstar absolutely does.
Yeah, I had no idea what that song was about until I recorded it, and I was like,
Oh
"Oh,
wow.
duh! It's about a groupie." So that sort of that that changed a lot of it. From I didn't think about the dark and the light. I mean, my preference for music is I love that contrast of dark lyrics with a beautiful melody, and that's kind of the Go-Go's. A lot of the Go-Go's songs are just that. So, but I think my choosing the songs were more about, like, I had a lot of songs on the list, but you know, um, demoing them, like I demoed Holiday. I always go back to Holiday, which I was obsessed with that song by the Bee Gees,
Oh
and it was,
wow.
and we tried to make it fit, and it just didn't. So I went for more about the songs that I loved, and then, after demoing, I mean, it was pretty black and white whether it was going to work or not.
You had like 80 songs, right? Something like that.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of
Uh,
them they were songs that didn't really fit the concept. But it was before the concept was really,
right.
that's what I really wanted to go for. So yeah, there was all sorts of weird songs. And I was working with a guy at my record company who's a total musicologist who is like a savant with, what was released what year and by who. So I had all his songs on the list too. But the songs, I mean, it was hard work, keeping, I knew what I liked, but keeping the integrity of the song with also making it my own. So it was like putting together a puzzle.
I've read that, maybe with songs like Holiday or whatever, you didn't, or maybe some of the other songs you demoed, one of the reasons you ultimately rejected them because you didn't think it maybe fit your voice. But
Right.
I will say, I mean, obviously you were saying before none of the Go-Go's were trained, so I don't know if you took voice lessons later. You didn't, you weren't a
Yeah, I
trained
did.
singer, but on this record, I do hear like a different side of your voice, like almost like a torch singer thing on some of the songs. I mean, I just, it seems like you're really going for it, maybe in ways I haven't heard from you too often.
Yeah. I think with when I made my French album, I always felt, because I that came out about God, it's almost about 18 years ago, so scary. But I always felt like I have a little bit of the chanteuse in me, so I got to get that out of my system with my French album. And as I've worked hard on my voice, and I work hard when I'm working. I'm pretty diligent with like my vocal lessons, and I do a lot
Oh,
of
okay.
breathing and stuff, and pranayama in my yoga practice, a lot of breathing. So that sort of changed my voice, and it has enabled me to tackle different styles that I would never normally even consider, like Burt Bacharach. Stylistically, I wasn't sure that was going to work, but it did, so yeah, I mean, it was fun doing different styles. And I feel with my voice now, I wasn't trained. But after I heard the second show the Go-Go's played was at the Rock Corporation in the Valley. And someone had a cassette tape of it, and I thought I started like, I was hot. It was like the best thing since sliced bread. And then I heard my voice and I was like, oh my God, I'm horrible. I have to do something about this. So I started, I was saving my money to, go to vocal lessons. And I
Oh,
started
well,
that after I heard that cassette. So
so
I've
that
been
early
working,
on.
yeah. But I mean, I didn't really, I mean, I did it. It helped me a little bit, but I think I never really took my voice that seriously until after I got sober, because I used to smoke and drink and carry on all night and then get up on stage the next night. I mean, I don't know how I did that, but I did. So I never really took care of it. But now for the past 20 years or so, I've really, really take care of it. And I'm serious about it.
I
So
was going to ask
I
about
think it
that.
shows. Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think
it
it
does
shows
show.
I think it shows in the album. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that because yeah, it's been, well documented in interviews that you've done with
Right.
me and many in the documentary, in your autobiography that yeah,
Right.
you lived at one time in a way that couldn't have been great for the vocals. And there are a lot of singers who at a pretty young age, like even in their by their 40s, you can already hear that they've lost a lot of their vocal strength. But so, yeah,
Right.
how did that not happen to you? Or did it start happening to you and then you like, fixed it?
It started happening when I got sober. Ironically, I mean, I never had a problem when I was drinking and smoking and carrying on. But then after I got sober, then I was like, I went to my doctor, who I still have, and I said, "What is going on? I go all these years of carrying on, and now that I'm like good as really good and diligent about taking care of myself, I have problems." And he said, he goes, "It's it happens to all singers. The minute
Huh.
they clean up, then they have the problems start." So I not that I did have vocal surgery last year.
Oh, I didn't know
Um,
that.
yeah, on my vocal cord, I had a node,
Mm.
and so yeah, I did a whole tour singing that. I could tell something was wrong. But besides that, I mean, I've had little, like if I have catch a cold on the road or something like that, then you have to take steroids, which I don't like to do. And but for the most part, if I take care of it, like when I check into a hotel, I turn off the aircon or heat, put on 3 humidifiers, and I don't talk. And I don't socialize anymore on the road. I go home after the shows. I don't talk on the phone that much. I'm very sort of, isolate myself and just do my work.
That makes sense. I mean, maybe I'm just theorizing because I'm not a voice doctor, but like the fact that first of all, it seems like you started taking voice lessons to learn how to sing properly really early on, which I think probably a lot of people your age and that era were not doing. But
Right.
also a lot of your peers in that punk scene, like it was about screaming. like in a good
screaming.
way. But like the
Yeah.
Go-Go's were never, you were never like a screamer, not the band, the Screamers, but like you were never, well, maybe, but yeah, you were never a screaming punk front person.
No, I wasn't. Although I kind of wanted to be, but no, I wasn't. It wasn't part of my personality. And it wasn't. I mean, I was thinking about the Germs was screaming, but I was a drummer that never played. And then Black Randy and their Metro Squad, I did sing a little bit, the background vocals. So yeah, I'm a singer, not a screamer. As
Is
cool as screaming is.
Did you ever, it can be, but obviously like what you were doing was even cooler. But did you ever feel like what am I doing in this punk scene? Obviously it was very good to you, but given the fact that you weren't a screamer and, even at the beginning it seems like you maybe were a bit outlier and all the influences you had. Like why didn't you become like a singer-songwriter like at the Ash Grove or something?
Um, well, that's I never really, I mean, as far as the musically, and I always felt like we always felt like we belonged, even though the songs are melodic. Is that after a while, the other people didn't think we belonged so much because we had sold out, we weren't punk or whatever. But when I don't have many regrets at all, but I will say I really should have stuck to my guitar lessons
Oh.
and learned how to write songs because I always had melodies in my head that were good and then I'd forget about them. So I wish I had stuck with that, just for songwriting.
I mean, it's never too late. A couple of years ago, put out your first, you had a pop hit with Diane Warren. That was like your first English language pop album in 30 years, 20
30
years.
years. Yeah,
So
something
it's
like
never,
that.
I guess it's never too late if you
It's
want
never
to.
too late. Well, I think at this point in my career, because
Mhm.
usually like if I was like looking for songs, all the best songs will go to Miley or to, Dua Lipa or someone like that. So it's hard to find good original material at this point in my career. So I probably it probably would be good to start writing again. And in my album Real, I did a lot of the songwriting on that. So I have it in me. It's you know, just not being distracted and not being lazy. I'm not lazy, but
You're not lazy. I wouldn't
but
call you that for sure.
just being sort of, not being driven to do that. If I had someone like Charlotte or living nearby, I probably would be doing more of that.
Well, I do have to, I mean, obviously a lot of the Go-Go's are always going to weave into any, conversation I have with you. And obviously you just played for two very different audiences, which I was mentioning before we started this interview, the Cruel World Festival, which was, even that was an interesting booking because people think of that as like a goth post-punk
Yeah,
dark festival and the Go-Go's were playing. And then, you played Coachella about a month before
right,
that. Only band, both Golden Voice festivals, but I'm pretty sure the only band that played both of them in 2025, which shows
yeah,
your influence. But, I'm that was well received. You had big
right,
crowds. Like, you guys always take your hiatuses, but then eventually come back to do a reunion tour or some festivals or to promote the documentary or an
right.
anniversary. So like yeah, basically can we expect anything from the Go-Go's like in terms of new music or anything anytime
Y-
soon?
I never, I've learned so many over and over again, never say never with that band because something always comes up, always. So, we got together again for Coachella because we thought that's something you don't pass up, and it's great for the legacy, and it's prestigious. So, and then now we have no plans to do anything. Not even thinking about it, but I'm sure that something is going to come along again. It always does. And so I'm not gonna say never again, because I don't know. I don't know.
What about the biopic, the long rumored biopic?
Well, I can't really talk about it, but it's definitely in the works. And those kind of things, um, they have a very small chance of ever getting made. So there's been, the series based on my book. There's been so many Go-Go's biopic projects, but there's one happening now that I think probably will end up happening. But I'm sorry, I just can't talk about it right now.
Totally fine.
But if it happens, I think it's going to be great. We'll
Is
see.
uh is the biopic or whatever, is it at a cast like is it at a stage where it's being casted or
No,
scripted?
it's being
It's
written right now. So
okay.
it's still in the very early stages. So
Who would play you
yeah,
though?
I know Florence Pugh.
I can see it.
That's yeah, that's I mean, but through the years it's been first it was Cameron Diaz about 30 years ago. But and then through the years it's been different actresses, but I really hope that they this does happen because I think she'd be perfect playing me. She has the same sort of vibe,
I
you
do
know.
think at one time she was in talks or rumored to be in talks to be in to play Madonna in the Madonna biopic, but I think that thing just got left iced. I don't think that's happening now, where it's definitely like
Right.
not in motion right now. So yeah,
Right. I think
put
she'd
her
be
in the
much better playing me. Although she'd be great playing Madonna, but I think that we have a lot of, I don't know, energetic similarities and also physical similarities, I think too.
absolutely. Well, to bring
Yeah.
it back to the era that inspired this new album, what was like the first 45 or album that you ever had that or that you bought with your own money or that you asked for?
Well, the first album I won at a Bobby Sox softball tournament, and it was Pet Sounds. So
Oh,
I know. So that was my first album. Completely changed my life. I mean, I thought they were so cute. You know, like, oh, there's Dennis Wilson, you know. But my first 45 was the Fifth Dimension Aquarius. I bought that with my own money.
absolutely makes sense. What about what was the first concert you ever went to and where was it?
I went to see God, what was his he sang it was Glenn Campbell and God, I was
Jimmy Webb? Jimmy Webb?
no, it was he sang a lot of the Disney. He had his Burl Ives,
Oh, Burl Ives, the
Burl
Christmas guy.
Burl Ives, and Glenn Campbell at the Hollywood Bowl.
Oh wow. Wow. That's
I know.
iconic. That's like have you ever wanted to do a Christmas album or a holiday album?
I did. I've done Christmas songs through the years. But yeah, somebody mentioned that. I think that'd be fun to do. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do next. Maybe I'll do. I have no idea, but maybe I'll do that.
That would
You
be
know.
cool. I mean,
Yeah.
I was gonna, wrap this up by actually asking you. So this album has a real conceit and a real theme. Do you think this is maybe a series you would do where you would do covers that are all kind of, have a connection between them? I think that'd be cool. Like
Yeah.
songbooks.
Somebody's actually had a really good idea. A journalist I was talking to is saying, "Have you ever thought about doing an album of songs written by women?" And I thought that's a really cool idea. So that got me thinking a little bit. So we'll see. I mean, I'm sure I'll do something else, but I just don't know when and where. But I've talked to Gabe, Gabe Lopez, who I've worked with quite a bit the past 15 years or so. We've thrown, we have ideas about things. So I'm sure I'll do something.
Awesome. Well, in the meantime, Once Upon a Time in California, was that a Quentin Tarantino Manson inspired title, by the way?
No,
Okay.
something I thought about it because I it was like I was wanted to do like a little sort of show at the Carlisle when I was into doing something, but do it like a storybook and and tell the story about how I wanted to be a singer with using a lot of the songs in my catalog. And then I called it Once Upon a Time in California. And
Mm.
then my husband said, well, that's just like the Tarantino film. And I was like, so what, so what? Who
I mean, it's
cares?
all connected. All the lore is kind of connected, even if it wasn't intentional.
Exactly.
So that's in the me.
Exactly.
So yeah, it must feel. I'll let you go, but it must feel like. I mean, do you have any final thoughts on like the full circleness of doing a record like this?
Um, no, I mean it was sort of bittersweet, recording some of these songs because they brought back a lot of memories. Um, and singing these songs that I used to listen to as a young girl, I really got to dig deep into the lyrics, like songs like that Marmalade song that ends the album, Reflections of My Life. I had no idea what that was about. And then when I decided I wanted to do that and dig into the lyrics, I was like, wow, how
Mhm.
amazing that I get to sing these lyrics being this age and experiencing so much of life and love and loss, So it was, yeah, there were some moments that were pretty interesting. bittersweet.
Do you mind me asking, you said, are there certain songs that brought up certain memories, that you want to discuss?
Oh,
Like specific track? Oh,
all of them. I can bring myself back to a moment. That song, I remember when it came out, and I mean, it was living in Burbank. I was in the garage where I, dress up and put, elaborate makeup on and have like, twigs that I'd use for cigarettes and sing. But I remember that hearing that, and I just thought it was the weirdest song because it didn't fit in with a lot of the other material that was coming out then. It's a little bit odd. And but I loved it. And every time it would come on, I would just turn it up, and I would actually be waiting to hear that song again.
aw, and now here we are.
I'm singing it. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank
Exactly.
you. Congratulations on that and everything
Thank you.
you've done in your life and everything that's coming up, whatever that may be. I'll definitely
Who
be
knows? Who knows? Well, it's always nice talking to you, always.
lovely to chat with you too. And hopefully I will see you. Actually, I hope that you'll be performing this material live soon.
Oh, definitely. Definitely next year sometime.